Ms. June Sklnner Sawyers.
June Sklnner Sawyers.
Who was on the show not too long ago. I mean, a few years back when you released was it called The Talking Beatles?
Read the Beatles.
Read the Beatles, that's it. Read the Beatles book. How long ago was that, June?
I think
About
5 or 6 years ago.
Really? How time flies.
I know. I've lost track of time.
Well, you're such a hip mama, writing all these songs about, writing all these books about musicians. And
I do my best.
And do you have a straight gig? Is that you're a Chicago Tribune columnist, I read?
Yes, I write for the Tribune, but I'm a full-time freelance writer and editor, and I teach a bit at the Newberry, at Loyola. So various gigs.
So you're a busy woman.
Try to be.
That a girl.
And do you write just about music, or you have some other books too? I know you have a bunch of books out.
Yeah, no, I write about travel. I'm from Scotland originally, so I write about
Oh, we might be related.
Oh.
I got a little Scot in me too.
Okay. I write about history, music, yeah, all my interests, in other words. Yeah.
Well, what piques your interest in doing a book about Bob Dylan in New York? I mean, we all have an interest. We all know about Bob Dylan, and clearly he's been a very important figure in many people's lives. What led you to put this book together?
Well, it's part of the publisher's Music Place series, and this is I think the third one. They've done the Grunge Seattle.
What was that?
Grunge Seattle.
Oh, Grunge Seattle.
Like Nirvana and all that.
Sure.
And Jimi Hendrix's London. So this is part of this ongoing series on how place affects a particular musician's or body of work.
Are these books all published by Roaring Forties Press out of Berkeley?
Yes.
What a nice little press. I had an opportunity to talk to
Deirdre Green.
And I was trying to get the books for tonight's event here at the Heartland, where you're going to do a reading, and you're bringing various people, and people are showing up to sing along and do some Dylan tunes afterwards. But the Roaring Forties Press project on place, what do they call it?
Music Place.
Music Place is really a great concept.
Well, I'm impressed, June, that you wrote this. You wrote this as if you were a New Yorker.
Yes.
You really come
thank you.
across as a New Yorker in this book. You know your Greenwich Village.
Oh, I love Greenwich Village.
Or as Dylan would say, your Greenwich Village.
Greenwich, yeah.
Your Greenwich.
Yeah.
And the way that that Rich just sang Tambourine Man was the cadence also that Dylan would use for that.
That's right.
As opposed to the general folky version. I love that.
Yeah.
And I did see Bob Dylan at a small venue here in Uptown about 10 or 15 years ago in the Riviera.
Oh, yeah.
When he played the Riviera.
Yeah.
Small room. And I think, he is such a nonconformist, such a get a stone in your shoe kind of guy. He purposely did every known song in a different cadence.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
He does that.
I mean, I saw him most recently at the Chicago Theater a couple of years ago, and at that point, his back is to the audience most of the time. He's not playing the guitar that often. He's on the keyboards, but his back is almost always to the audience for the entire 2 hours.
Such a nudge. But I also noticed, even though your work is a lot about the place.
Yes.
And that time. And he was a youngster when he came to New York.
19, 20 years old, yeah.
Yeah,
very young.
He came from Minnesota.
Right.
Hibbing. Born in Duluth, I think.
That's right, born in Duluth.
But sometimes even in your book you point out, he says he's from New Mexico.
Oh, I know, but he's from Hibbing.
He twisted it up.
He made up lies, actually.
That's right.
He also
But Judy Garland was from Minnesota too, right?
Yes.
And he liked Judy Garland because there was a neighbor town.
Yeah, he was a hometown girl and a hometown boy, right?
Like a lot of smart people, he hooked up with brilliant women who showed him the ropes.
Oh, yes.
His first New York girlfriend, Sarah, turned him on to a variety of different art.
You mean Susie?
Susan, sorry,
yeah,
right.
Susie
Sarah was his
Bartolo.
wife. Yeah.
Who died not that long ago, unfortunately.
Wow. And she was the one in the picture of Freewheelin'.
Yes.
The front of the cover.
She was his muse.
And everybody, yes, exactly.
She was.
But she also turned him on to a bunch of art and music that
theater,
he would not
especially,
have known.
Yeah, music and jazz and art and theater as well.
And he did the same thing when he hooked up with Joan Baez. I mean, he basically you know,
he took from them.
He took from them, which is something that we do in relationships.
Right, but he turned it into something new.
He turned it into something he could turn into something of his own.
He was a thief of thoughts, he said, but not a stealer of souls or something along those lines. So he took, but he also gave.
Yes,
well,
he
one of the
clearly
things
gave.
For me in the book that, I grew up outside of New York City, and as a teenager, when I went to New York with my family, I used to have to get dressed up.
Oh, right.
But then there got to be a period where we go into New York and we'd go to jazz concerts, and I remember being at the Village Vanguard, at the Village Gate,
right.
Various places. I remember getting pizza at a little stand there, and I remember crowded streets with just people, all kind of unique-looking folks, and you capture that in your book. It brought back a lot of memories. I remember seeing a play, The Connection, and the famed jazz guy who just died recently, Jackie McLean, a trumpeter, was playing at that. When I wanted to go see that, so it was pre-60, I said, I'm going to go in and see this play, Dad. And my dad said, "Oh, what do you want to go see that? It's about a bunch of drug addicts, And
very Village.
The Village was something else. It was quite a place.
Yeah.
Do you still go to the Village? Do you visit it? Can you make a comparison of it now and then?
I'm going on Monday.
And what is happening Monday? Tell everybody.
Well, this coming week is the annual book publishing convention. And then on Tuesday is Bob Dylan's 70th birthday, May 24th. So I'm giving a book party. My publisher arranged a book party at the former Gaslight. It now has it's now under new ownership. It's changed hands over the years, but it just has a new name, 116 Cafe or something it's called. It just opened a few days ago under this new ownership, and my publisher arranged a book party there on Tuesday night, May 24th.
Wow, that's pretty
Village.
cool.
Yeah.
And tonight you're going to be here on this stage.
Yes, tonight I'll be here. I'll be reading from my book, but also talking a bit about the book and about Dylan, and maybe reciting some of my Dylan poems.
Cool. Oh, that'll be good.
Excellent.
Good luck. And some musicians are going to come on stage and sing some Dylan songs.
Well, Rich Kruger preceded you on the show today, and I know he'll be here, but he, along with the other folk musicians we've had on this show recently, really had me thinking about the old days. And I know Dave Van Ronk just passed away, but you talk about him in the book and his relationship.
There's a Dave Van Ronk honorary street sign in the Village. I mean, in the village,
right.
And his Dave Van Ronk tunes are on the Heartland Jukebox here. I don't know if our employees know who he was, but they'll be playing him now for sure. And you talk about Carolyn Hester in the book, and one of the things that really was interesting to me was politics and the influence of various, not only club owners who stood up to the mafia and the police, but also producers and promoters, and the influence of progressive politics, not only on Dylan, but that whole circle.
Then you have John Hammond, who is very involved in politics over his entire life, and he, of course, discovered, quote unquote, so many people, from Billie Holiday to Dylan to Springsteen. So this ongoing connection between music and politics is part of Dylan's story.
Whose son, John Hammond Jr., was quite a singer, and I did see him later date. He sort of looked like a skinny white version of an old blues guy in old rumpled clothes and stuff.
A village icon.
Is he still out there?
I think so. I don't know much about him, but I think he certainly was a village icon.
To look up all these people, Mark Spolstra, there's a whole lot of people.
He's quoted in the book. Yeah, there's a lot of.
It's a skinny book.
It's a skinny book,
but there's a lot in here.
It's very portable.
Yes, quite portable, and it's a nice shot.
When you're walking around New York.
And it's a nice shot of Dylan on the front that I'd never seen before.
I want my kids to read it.
My publisher got that photograph.
That's a good one.
It's a great cover.
But what did you learn from doing this interesting thing of connecting the place and the music? What is meaningful to you about plumbing the depths of those kinds of connections?
Well, I think the thing is we all think we know Bob Dylan in some way, but we don't, of course. And what's most fascinating to me is how he has changed his personas so much over the years. So the real Dylan, if that person exists, even to himself, he's probably a mystery to himself. and that to me was an ongoing surprise. Even though, again, we think we know him, but it's just always an ongoing, fascinating icon.
That fact alone made me think when I was reading it this week. He is an unknown entity. He was making himself up as he went along. He came to New York to find Woody Guthrie,
right?
And he wanted to be Woody Guthrie,
right?
Or his long lost son. And Woody
then he transcended them.
And then he went past that. And then there are other changes. The whole Christian part of his life,
right.
You know, you get a sense that there are people like him whose purpose in life for being here is this public thing that they do,
right.
Bringing their gift to people and turning folks on and into something else with their gift.
Yeah, and it's part
he got to play on the steps of the march that you attended, the Civil Rights March,
the March on Washington,
right?
Yeah.
And I mean, he's a historical guy without maybe a clue about how to be a human being in between time.
Well, yeah.
I mean, there's an interesting thing that artists have, I think, sometimes.
In the book, somewhere, someone says, it doesn't matter where you came from, it's where you're going. Do you remember who that is? It's in your book.
Yes, I forget who that is, but my point for the entire book was he said that New York was the magnet that draws objects to it.
Right.
But I also wanted to make the connection, at least here, that he came from Dinkytown in Minneapolis, and Minnesota actually prepared him for New York, because Dinkytown. What was the village but a bigger version of Dinkytown?
Right.
And I think we forget where he came from, and I think it's important to remember his Midwestern roots.
Also,
we like
Albert Grossman, his longtime manager, who opened up the Gate of Horn,
Chicago
which was the major folk.
You talk about Bob Gibson. I remember Bob Gibson eating in here in our early days, and then me having a pretty serious discussion with him about how much he was going to charge to play here.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And he did play here. And, too bad he passed away, but it was... Boy, the connections, just the book brought back all these memories, and I'm going to read the rest of it tonight.
Oh, good. What the book does is it tries to capture a time and place, primarily, but not exclusively, in New York in the early 60s when he first went there, and then also the mid-60s, and then he came back to the village, he said, as a stupid thing to do, when it was getting crazy, in the late 60s, early 70s, and then he went back upstate New York, and then came back again to the village to play in the mid-70s. And that's
Where is he now?
Well,
where does he call home?
Malibu? I mean, who knows? I'm sure he has many homes.
Okay.
You know, in between his never-ending tour.
Yeah, right.
Who knows where he is? Maybe, but Malibu is...
Because I ran across one of his kids at McAllister College many years ago. And I was wondering if he still had a Midwest...
Oh, I would think so. I don't know for sure, but I would think so.
Connection.
Yeah.
Okay.
With his brother and all that too, David Zimmerman.
June Sawyer, what's your next project?
Well, I'm working on an idea which I'm calling Radical Grounds, about a connection between folk music and the coffee house scene.
Oh, cool.
I'm in the very early stages.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Yeah. I thought you would like that.
That'll be good.
Because
hopefully we'll see you more often.
Somewhere down the road a piece, you've got to do a musician in Chicago.
Yes,
but there's so many to pick from.
It has to be an iconic musician.
Steve Goodman.
Yeah.
Bonnie Colac. There's a lot.
I still think Tom Dundee should get someplace, somewhere, sometime.
It'd be helpful if you could find someone who's still alive, so you could actually do a little live
that could be a
research. I know.
Why don't you? I like to do this to all of our guests. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you come from? How did you get interested in the things that you write about? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, I was born in Glasgow, Scotland. We came here as a family when I was about 10 years old, and I've always had an interest in music, and I think partly because I can't play or sing. So if I can't do that, at least I can write about it.
Well, that's awfully big of you.
So that's how I got into it. So I just had an interest in writing about things that I have an interest in, and music was the one of the main topics.
Cool.
And it's it's ongoing. All kinds of music, from rock and folk to Celtic.
Do you ever go back to Scotland?
Yes, I go back every year, and I'm going back for my cousin's wedding in August.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
Because, the good thing is we can understand what you're saying.
I do my best.
Yeah. You lost. I mean, I once hitchhiked in London, and it was a Scottish lorry driver who talked a mile a minute to me for at least 3 hours. I didn't understand a word he said.
Well, there's all kinds of Scottish accents. There's all kinds of Scottish accents.
Well, June Sklnner Sawyers, we are so happy to have you back. And tonight you'll be on this stage at what time?
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. Reading, signing books, selling books. We'll be singing some Dylan.
Yeah, some poetry.
Some poetry.
And Rich Kruger's going to come play some tunes, and Becca Marcellus is going to play some tunes.
Yeah, and who else?
And who
We'll
knows
see.
who else will show up.